The technology that I'll be talking about is the classroom response system, or as many may know it as, little small devices called clickers. So what exactly is a clicker? The clickers are small remote keypads that can be used to input answers to multiple choice questions, whether they be multiple choice or they be true or false. These devices send two-way radio frequency signals, so they not only send the signal, but they also is an indication that the signal has been received, which can help alleviate the anxiety of students using these devices. The use of the clicker is usually going to start with a professor or instructor or teacher asking a particular question. Students will then provide a response to the said question, and then they are tabulated and formed into a histogram. This histogram will be then shown on the projector, and it will be displayed in software such as PowerPoint. The data gathered from the use of these clickers can then be loaded up into various classroom management sites such as Blackboard, WebCT, and Desire2Learn. Now, some of you may be wondering what the actual benefits of using a clicker are, besides somewhat resembling the Ask the Audience selection from Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. One of the biggest benefits of using a clicker in class is that it promotes discussion among students. A question is addressed, and then students can discuss this with each other and then develop an answer. And this discussion can either begin before the question is actually answered, or it can actually follow the initial review. And this will actually allow students to discuss things and then be re-polled a second time. Clickers are used quite a bit when answering quiz questions, and these quiz questions can either be to kind of test the student's knowledge, or it can be used to gear the students towards a particular concept that's considered important. And using these particular kind of quizzes is going to lead to a lot of students being a little more prepared for class. And speaking of being prepared to class, it's important that the students are actually awake. If they're extremely bored, they tend to fall asleep, but some studies have actually shown that a lot of people, not even just students, tend to lose focus after 20 minutes in. So if you kind of have some questions thrown in here and there using the clickers, it's actually going to maintain the students' concentration and refresh them a little bit. The use of clickers allows students to remain anonymous. This allows the instructors to get a more realistic idea of how well the students really know the material, as well as allowing the anxious and shy students in the class to participate when otherwise they would not. It's extremely unlikely that a lot of students that are in a 500-person lecture hall are going to raise their hand and answer in front of everybody else. That's a little risky and embarrassing. One of the biggest mistakes that can be made when using clickers is just using them simply for attendance. This is going to make the students extremely angry because they're going to feel they're being forced to come to class, but also they're going to be feeling that they wasted $50 on the device. And when you think about it, they could have been using that money on 1/16 of textbook or something like that. Another big flaw that involves the students themselves is cheating. Because students' particular clicker is going to be designated with them, a lot of times a student may bring in a clicker of a friend and use it. Also, a student may simply just be in class to use the clicker itself. They will sit back, disrupt the rest of the class while they're playing on their computer or playing on their phone and just answering the questions. Although students may feel that the use of clickers can take away from class time, there have been some studies that show some sort of advantage by actually increasing attrition. So even though some of those students may just be coming to class and not paying attention, there's still those who may not have came to class otherwise and end up actually paying attention. And this can actually improve attrition, or the staying power of the students themselves, how likely they are to stay in college and not drop out. There can be some personal feelings with regards to clickers. Some students may feel that the questions that are being asked are useless and actually serve no purpose. Some may feel, like stated earlier, that they're being forced to take attendance, and many students who maybe have anxiety issues are going to be worried about answering these quizzes, especially if they're a large portion of the grade. That's why, in a way, it's important to take care of this issue by giving students either partial credit for answering the question and then more credit for answering the question, or simply just giving the students credit whether they answer the question or not. Now, when it comes to the professors themselves, many may object because it's taking away from precious lecture time. Of course, this can be accommodated because a professor can actually provide work, or the instructor can provide work online, for example, such as WebCT quizzes. And also they can provide students with preparational material prior to class and after class that they can use. But really the biggest reason a lot of professors don't really like it, and a lot of people don't like using clickers, is the technical difficulties. There are a few factors that are important when it comes to making sure the clickers are successful. It's important to plan ahead of time and understand why this particular question is useful, because you don't want to have a bunch of questions that serve no purpose. Also, it's important to plan ahead of time in case a student forgets their clicker or there's technical difficulties. Also, it's important to link the clicker into the grades, because this is going to not only increase attendance, but it's also going to increase the attrition rate. And it's also good to make sure that there is discussion based around the questions, whether it's the students discussing things amongst themselves or the professor or teacher themselves standing in front of the class explaining why this is the correct answer. Also, it's important to at least provide the partial credit for participation to prevent students from feeling discouraged. And it would be important to actually drop some of the lower quicker scores. That also helps promote this. Also, make sure to test questions, work the kinks out, and allow students to learn how to use devices the very first week, because this is going to allow the students extra time to pick this technology up. So now I've kind of discussed both the advantages and disadvantages and how to solve a lot of the disadvantages associated with the use of clickers. Let's focus on the future. Now, the future of clickers to a lot of people may seem a little bleak, and the reason for this is the increasing popularity of mobile devices such as tablets and smartphones. For example, here is an example of the lecturer's and the student's device when actually providing quiz questions. And not only can the smartphones have apps that can allow them to do the same things that a clicker can do, but they also provide students and the professor themselves with a large number of apps that can be used in various ways. These apps can also be applied to other devices such as laptops and tablets, and both of these devices have an increasing number of functions and applications that they're going to be used for. And there's actually a huge push for tablets in education, and they can do a lot more than a clicker can, including allowing students to follow along with the instructor on their own device. The main thing to wonder about now is if the clicker is obsolete. Now, some of you may think that tablets and smartphones are more useful because they have a lot more that they can do. And all this may be the case. The one thing to wonder about is the cost. It's a lot easier to get a lot of students a clicker that they can use to answer questions than to expect students to have a $500 smartphone or a $200 tablet. But although tablets are kind of on the expensive side, a lot of schools have actually been pushing them. Some schools and colleges have been giving students free tablets and pushing for their use in introductory courses. In the future, if there's enough students on tablets, it may be a little easier to simply install an application that can serve the same function as that served by the clicker itself. It will be interesting, in my opinion, to see where technology goes further. And although this will be in the future, the clicker is still a useful technology for pulling the class and is best beneficial in providing the instructor with a way to see how the class is doing. The most important feature of a clicker, though, is how much fun they are to use.